How ironic it is that you and I, an African and a Filipino, are talking about time management. I hope this doesn't dissuade you from watching. A struggle. It's a constant struggle.
The whole time I was stressed, you know what I was thinking about?
What?
The other times
that you had.
that I had, and I would sit around, and Rob would be like, if I had just done the thing I said I was going to do last week, Wednesday.
Yep. It's like a false narrative.
It's a false narrative. It's a false
List 5, your top 5
priority
that are important to you and your priorities up there on your list. We'll talk about time blocking as per Elon Musk. When you're on autopilot and you're not being intentional with your time, that's you have to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Everyone's lifestyle is different. I'm not when you were growing up, you wanted to prove something. I guilty 100%.
Oh my gosh, it was. Listen, we have real life experience, okay? Of being terrible at managing our time. But yes, very ironic.
We're better at it.
Yes, we are.
So for today's topic, as you can see, our background has changed a little bit, but our plans has to come with us. They just have to.
Living and thriving.
You're back, Jen, from your work.
Yes, I came back on Saturday. Today's Wednesday. I'm only home for a little bit, but always so nice to be home.
To be home.
Yes.
There's
Oh
no
my
place
gosh.
like home.
Listen, when I walk into the foyer, that's when I really feel like I'm home. Every time I come home, and then I just kind of stand in the foyer, and I'm like,
Oh, that
oh my
feeling.
gosh, it's the best. Yeah.
Seriously.
It's nice to be home, though.
It's nice to be home. But in the spirit of being busy with our lives and everyone else's lives, we wanted to talk about time management.
A struggle.
And a struggle. It's a constant struggle, I think, for a lot of people. So I think it's very timely. It's very, very relevant. And I would like to start by saying, when people say time is gold,
Yeah.
do you think that's right?
It's true.
Why?
It's true. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I always tell you about my struggles with school. And I remember my last 2 courses, girl, I had so much time. I dragged my feet. I procrastinated because I have time, right? I procrastinated. I procrastinated until I had 1 week left. I mean, I'd done most of my assignments and most of my papers, but I had 1 paper left. And of course, when you're procrastinating, it's not like you're, doing a little bit at a time. No, girl, I didn't even read about, how much the paper was worth, or I didn't do any of that because I had time. What do you mean? It's just 1 course. The other course, I just had an exam again. Everything was left to the last week. I wrote my exam, which was fine. That was not a problem. But then the 1 course that I had the paper, I finally went and looked at what I needed to do. And man, as soon as I read the requirements.
This is 1 week before?
Yes.
Okay.
The requirements. I had already read the article that I need to write the paper on. It was just sitting down and putting all my thoughts together. And I'm thinking, I'm good at papers. It's cool. It's going to be fine. I'm going to have a whole week to write it, right? But do you even know what you're writing about outside of that's the article, but what angle you're going to take or what your arguments are? Anywho, I had a week. I have never been as stressed. And then the whole time I was stressed, you know what I was thinking about?
What?
All the other times
that you had.
that I had, and I would sit around, and Rob would
God.
be like, babe, like, you don't have time. You think you have time. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if I had just done the thing I said I was going to do last week, Wednesday.
Yep. Guilty 100%.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Time goes by so fast.
So quickly.
So,
quickly.
but you know how some people thrive with shorter due dates? Shorter time before due date?
Lie.
It's a lie.
I
Do you-
thought-
when people say you work under pressure,
It's
better.
not true. You don't work better. It's because you don't have a choice. Okay, let's be honest. You don't work better. You are literally. It just seems like you're productive because really you don't have a choice. Time has run out, but you're not thriving, girl. There's nothing.
Yeah. It's like a false narrative.
It's a false narrative. It's a false sense of comfort because that's why we keep doing it, because it's like, oh, but like I waited till last minute, but I did well. I mean, I did well on my paper. Like I got a nice, pretty 80 something.
Oh,
but
good.
But
The stress that came
the
with it.
stress, I was sick after.
I remember.
Is that right? Remember? Is that really thriving though?
God.
No, that's not thriving. It's just because you didn't have a choice. So you felt like you were thriving, but no, you're not thriving. You're just rushing.
So that leads me to our next point. I'm actually guilty of saying, I think in one of our episodes, I said we don't have time. Like life is so stressful. But based on the research that I've done over the past week and so, I find that the narrative that we don't have time is actually false.
Yes.
We have time. It's just we have so much on our plate. We don't know how to prioritize.
Yep.
We take, and you're not putting that energy towards where it should be. So the narrative of I don't have enough time is actually not correct.
Very false. Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
So why are we talking about this? Because there's such stress and overwhelm when it comes to time management. When people don't manage their time, it's like, I'm so not productive. I'm not doing anything the way I want it to be because you're not managing your time correctly.
And it becomes overwhelming. And at times it can be very depressing when you're overwhelmed.
Yes.
Because you're like stuck. You feel stuck. And you don't know how to start because there's too many things now. And sometimes too, I find when we're in that mindset, like when we're in that space, we tend to be hyper productive, but just in our minds. Like, okay, I need to do A, B, C, D. And then you have all these plans in your head. And then to do it on paper is so exhausting because it's unrealistic.
To do it on paper, like,
to like actually do it, like, well, not even to do it on paper, like on paper it sounds great because you're hyper productive and you're doing all the things you said you were going to do, and all these things are going to be accomplished, but it's like the capacity like within yourself, sometimes it's just not there, right?
No.
But
that's why you have to reassess. If you find that you don't have time, maybe it's time to really revisit your activities, what you do in your day to day. It might not be productive because I'm doing A, B, and C and whatever, but you don't even need to do those type of stuff
right now.
Yes. So I love that. And you know what? I think tip 1 is revisit where you are, assess your situation. What is number 1 taking most of your time? Is it your family, kids, work? I would say list your top 5
priorities
that are important to you and your priorities, and then go from there. That's a good tip, I think.
That's a great tip because then that gives you a foundation. Because then you build everything else around that, because that's the important stuff, right?
And I remember you telling me that with the other stuff.
The calendar thing.
We'll talk about more probably in later episode. But if you know your priorities, you know what you have to do, you know who you are, who's Abby, who's Jen, if you know exactly who you are. Allocate those important time for yourself and task and whatnot. So another thing is this thing called daily highlight. Where, I have all my top 5 and I have a calendar in front of me, but today is Wednesday. What is it that I need to do that's non-negotiable, that I have to get this done?
I like that.
Get that on your list, up there on your list, and then your other top 4 or 5, whatever, can just kind of, and we'll talk about time blocking as per Elon Musk. That's another thing.
It's so good.
Right? So that's the thing with daily highlight is every day. Do you do like weekly? Like you sit down and you're like, this week, this is what I'm going to do?
You know what? In the past when I have been better, it's because I did that. I have a running to-do list in my phone. I've always had it, but it was never organized to priority, like which one is important. It was never organized that way. And then for a while I did this thing where it's like, to-do list for school, for work, for this, for that, and it still didn't work until the times when I would take the week and say, okay, I'm going to do these things. And then right away, if it's like appointments, I'd have to go and book it right away. Just get it over with.
Right.
It's done. It's ready to go.
Right.
And I felt I did better managing my time doing the weekly thing because it's time based.
So not only you should have your weekly, you should have your daily highlight as well every morning before you do everything else. Well, we will talk more about censoring yourself before being productive so you don't burn out. We'll talk about that more.
Yes.
But I think that the daily highlight kind of put into perspective how today this has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than scrambling around, like this has to be done. Like what is your top priority of the day, right?
Yeah.
We have Cardex.
Well, you got to write the research somewhere.
Also, when people ask, oh, can you do this favor for me? And you already have so much in your plate according to your needs.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a maybe, then it's probably a no.
Yeah.
Right? Don't be saying, well, yeah, sure, but you don't actually, like, you have to, again, reassess. If you watch the other episode of the Camu Talks.
The people pleasing thing, right?
Yeah. If you're actually using what you learn in people pleasing, you will be able to use that and manage your time better.
Like iMessages and being assertive and not feeling bad.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I do not have capacity or I'm unavailable. I had a time in my life where when people ask you, hey, what are you doing on this day? Mm-hmm. I hate that question so much. Because I had a situation happen where I felt like the person was asking and when I did say, oh, I don't have anything going on, then they felt like, oh, you have availability. Let me now insert myself. Meanwhile, that was my do nothing day because I try and have those things. And then instantly, the people pleasing, I felt guilty and I'm like, well, I just said I'm not doing anything. How do you say no? And so, of course, I was like, the person inserted themselves and I was like, yeah, okay, maybe we can do that. But then I was so bothered. I was bothered leading up and I was just like, I'm just going to have to cancel. I can't.
Why is it so hard to say that today's my rest day?
Right? Because it's the people pleasing and also too it's like you feel like you don't have a reason to say, like, what do you mean your whole day is open but you're not what does that even mean? But not everybody feels like it's okay to pick a day to do nothing because everyone's so hyper productive. So it's almost hard to also say, yes, my whole day is open but I'm not doing anything, but I'm not available to you. Like it feels weird. It feels wrong.
Yes.
But I did cancel. And that's why I hate that question. What are you doing on this day?
I know.
And so now what I say when people ask me, like, what are you doing on this day? I'm like, I'm not sure. But, like, did you want to do something? Did you want to get together? Or?
But you know what it is, too? Because you kind of, if you're not doing anything, you kind of question, should I do something fun with this person? So then that messes up your entire plan of just chilling.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? But you could just squeeze in a couple hours.
Like, you've already planned your day as, like, a chill day, but then somebody asks you, and you're like, well, maybe it'll be...
Right?
So it makes you question your entire plan.
That's also a huge part of it. Yes, I didn't even think about that. But, yeah.
So that's when episode 6 comes in handy, because then you can exert yourself.
Yes.
Right?
And not feel bad.
So time blocking, I think, based on my research, too, is that Elon Musk... use time blocking a lot. It's like big in time management. Okay. It's so simple. I'm like, what is this time blocking? I had to research about it. It's essentially giving you a block of time where you have to do that task. Say, for example, I'm going to clean my house for 2 hours and then move on to your next task of something else, like running an errand or something. So you're not overdoing it. Imagine cleaning. You've only allotted yourself 2 hours and you have other things. You gotta move on. You gotta do other stuff. So instead of like, oh, it's been 4 hours already.
Because it happened.
No, so that's time blocking. Allocate times for your tasks.
Okay.
So right now we're blogging. We're filming. I'm doing this for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go home and feed the children. Mm-hmm. I don't have children, but Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or run an errand or do a research for an hour. Like, you have to respect the time you allotted for certain activities.
Yeah.
So you're not burnt. You're not feeling, I don't have any time of the day anymore. Like, I don't have anything else to
Because
do.
you
So
spent it all cleaning.
that's time blocking.
Okay.
How do you like that?
I feel like that's great.
Right?
Just like anything else, but the most important thing is you have to have the discipline to do it. Because as you're talking, I'm thinking of like, cleaning. When you're cleaning, you listen to music and you're jamming, and then like the alarm goes off and I have to stop. I have to stop.
I see, when you're in the zone.
Yeah, because cleaning can be therapeutic sometimes, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
But you have to respect, if you're trying to give energy and time to those top 5 priority that you have,
Then you have to stop.
then you have to realize that, well, if I really want to achieve so and so, I have to really allocate those times only for those times. That's why you
Yeah.
have your daily highlight.
Yeah,
Because then you're
that's
going to
true.
tackle that first.
Yeah.
And everything will just kind of fall into place. And be kind to yourself. If you don't feel like I'm going to finish this task right now, then you don't have to. You've already finished your daily highlight.
Oh, that's true.
Then do it the next day. Like,
And
don't
rest.
and rest.
Yeah.
I really truly believe that rest should be a part of your time blocking.
Hence why I take a day to do nothing.
Yes.
Because I didn't think it was important until my friend told me, my therapist told me, like, just pick a day to just decompress. If you have the luxury of doing that, do it. When else are you going to do it?
It's counterintuitive of being productive if you don't allocate your time for rest. It doesn't serve you good
no.
whatsoever.
That's the whole point. We're not perfect.
No.
Like, we give examples from our lives all the time on the podcast. It's hard. These things are hard. And that's why you do it. And today we were talking about like mirrors in our sets. Like, this is the second time we've had a mirror on set because, like doing this for us too helps us reflect. Like, because for me, I've told Abby this too, is like, this keeps me accountable because then I have to sit down, like when we're done filming, it's like, okay, so like, am I really like doing this properly? Like, especially the time management stuff. Like, look what happened with with my 1 week to write a paper and an exam and stuff. Yeah, it was hard, but I also know that when I do follow and do like I used to do with the weekly highlights, I'm more productive, but I'm not burnt out. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, there's productivity. There's always productivity, but the issue is when you're burnt out and you're still doing it, or you feel like the energy's not there, or you're having resentment because you're so burnt out and you feel like you're overworked. That's when there's an issue. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being productive, but the whole point of this is to also be healthy as you're doing it, and that's why time management is so important. So yes, we're not perfect, and that's why it's a Filipino African thing, but this definitely helps.
And like, you have to make sure that you're weeding out what you don't need in your life. I feel like there's so much noise. There's so much extracurricular activities that we don't actually value in our lives and we don't actually need, but we think it should be there.
Yeah.
Like, you should, like I said, sit down, reassess, weed out the things that you don't need. Then you will have more time for yourself, for your family, more free time, right?
I think that also goes along with as humans, especially in the Western culture, we're taught to consume. We're always consuming, whether it's information, whether it's things, whether it's materials or whatever. Information. We're always consuming, and that's why I pointed out that, like, yeah, it's nice for for us to have these steps, but if you don't follow through with it, it's not going to do anything. And like, I remember going through my journey, I used to like, I'm going to read this self-help book, and I have a list of all these books.
Do you know how many self-help books I've been...
See? Because we just want to, the more I know, the better. But it's like, no, it's not the more you know, the more you practice.
That's it.
Yes.
You can have all the self-help books in the world, and if they're just going to also sit there, or if you don't apply them, and they're not going to...
There's no point.
They're not going to do...
There's no point.
So, fun fact, actually, Jen. I read this somewhere, and it was, like, really fascinating to me. It says here that if you're not managing your time, or managing it too much are both trauma responses.
Ooh, elaborate.
So not managing your time or managing it too much could be a trauma response. Not managing your time meaning you're just kind of going with the flow, you're in a survival mode.
I see.
You're just like, let's go. I've seen a lot of people who wake up and like, let's go. I'm like, where? Like, where are we going?
Can we just settle into our bodies?
Yeah. There's no sense of plan. There's no sense of time manage. It's just, let's go. And there's no plan of the day. Like, that's very stressful and overwhelming. When you're on autopilot and you're not being intentional with your time, that's the key word.
And you go with every and any flow that comes by.
Yeah.
And there's no real,
Yeah.
there's no real know-how. There's no goal. There's there's no guidance. You're just.
Yeah. And they said that's because of you've been in survival mode for so long. Why would you take that extra time to plan? It's like a stressful thing for them, is to plan and manage their time. It's kind of crazy, but
I've also heard of people saying that they don't plan certain things because they don't want to be disappointed. Right? Because when you plan, then you have these expectations, but at the end of the day, like when you understand that you do not have control over what's going to happen on your way there, then you can at least prepare. That's what planning is, preparing, right? Okay.
Yeah, there's just around it, and we're not going to get into details, but it's just something like a fun fact that I've come across. Cool. Or managing it too much.
Like hyperproductivity?
Yes. Ooh. They said that hyperproductivity is more like trauma response because probably when you were growing up, you wanted to prove something.
Oh my God. I was just, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about our episode and it's like, am I worthy?
Yeah.
Because you're having to do the most all the time.
Hashtag episode, which was episode 6?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it all sums together because if you don't have that basic understanding of things like people pleasing and of why am I being overproductive and why am I just trying to please everybody and trying to prove a point, you know, like they said it's a trauma response.
And I mean, it makes sense.
Being controlling, I gotta produce. But then are you really getting somewhere?
Right.
Are you burning yourself out? Are you being resentful?
Yeah.
Because now you're overworking yourself with no result.
Yes.
Remember that resting too will give you time to reassess and reflect.
I love how it's always full circle. Like you just gotta circle back.
So we've talked about time management as a tool to eliminate stress, to have control over your life, right? Do you agree with those things?
Yes, and I feel like it also allows you to tune in with yourself because in order to do it, you kind of have to check in. Yeah.
And when I was actually talking to a friend not too long ago, and I said, how do you manage your time? I'm the type of person that I have to write everything down. I can't go by memory. Because writing things down allow me to put things into perspective.
Yep.
And as I check mark them,
it feels good.
It's like a reward. It's like an achievement, right? So everyone's different, but I feel like for myself personally, I have to physically see, for today, this is my daily highlight. These are my time blocks. And these are my priorities. So I can see them better.
Yeah.
I can verbalize it in my head and I can physically see it. I used to just go like spontaneous. I know what to do today. And then I miss a lot of things.
Yes.
You could have, I don't know, for you, maybe it works like you have this big, giant memory. I tend to just...
I can't do it.
I can't.
No.
And go ahead.
I do a list too. And like the emoji with the green check mark? It's green with a white check mark. That's what I use.
Oh.
Yeah, so my to-do list in my notes app. And then I use that emoji to check it off. And that emoji makes me feel so good.
So good.
Because then it's like, oh, accomplished tasks. It's out of the way.
Yeah.
And I also just started this thing. Well, I started a couple months ago and it's been a struggle because I'm still struggling with procrastination a bit where I do like a bi-weekly check-in, and it was a system that I created for myself to also reassure myself that I'm actually doing the things that I said I would do. And this is strictly for school and my health. So basically my checking. So every 2 weeks I check in and I have a habit tracker of like how
Oh.
many. Yeah,
So you can kind of look back and see like what
the
you've
2
done.
weeks what I've done,
Ah.
right? And it has to do with school.
Okay.
So I'll check off and I'll put how many hours I spent on school. I'm trying to do 40 hours a week on school because I still work, but I also really am trying to do this as fast as I can now at this point. So I have 40 hours of school and I check off the days that I have school and how many hours, and it's still a struggle. But I also find that when I do have my check-in, then it's like, oh, Jenn.
It feels good.
It feels good, and sometimes it really holds you. It holds you by the neck, and it
Right.
says, "Girl, you only did 10 hours. What else did you do with your week?" And then I have movement, so for working out, and most times it doesn't happen. But thank God for yoga as a movement, because
Yeah.
that's easy.
You can do it at home.
I do 10-15 minutes, and I call it a day,
Yeah.
and that keeps me accountable. And then anything else like eating habits and things like that. So that helps me keep abreast of myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel good when I see all the check marks. And I'm like, oh, these 2 weeks, I did so well. Look how many hours I put
Yeah.
in school. And then other times it's like, Jenn, why are you doing this?
But for somebody who is a creative and who's always, my mind is always up there, and like you need to have a system
helps.
where it kind of grounds you and puts you back. So that leads me to my next point is when you have you have your top 5, you have your daily highlight, your time blocking, you know what you're supposed to do. But you also have to think about burnout. Like it could probably happen, right? So you have to, for me, my important takeaway from this episode is prioritizing your wellness. I always start with, I call them non-negotiable. Actually, I got that from Marie Forleo podcast. Non-negotiable time where you can dedicate that to your wellness and centering and grounding yourself. So for instance, I wake up, I fix my room, I wash my face, etc. How do I now prioritize wellness, being centered before I tackle the day? Because that keeps me centered. So I work out,
Yeah.
I go for a walk, I have my breakfast, I stretch,
Wow.
I do my prayers, whatever you practice, right?
Yeah.
Your meditation, whatever it is. So that's a non-negotiable time of the day that you absolutely cannot miss. You cannot skip.
That's really good.
Because you have to still respect the fact that you are a person. You have to prioritize your health and your wellness, and it decreases burnout.
It does.
And you feel like, you know what, I've already taken care of myself, so now it's time to tackle the day.
I can go and do the things.
Yeah, instead of I wake up, let's go.
And then you're like, "Oh, I'm so tired.
There's no plan.
I just need a minute.
There's no plan, right?
Yeah.
But versus having that time dedicated to yourself, I don't know, sometimes it takes me 2 hours on my days off. I don't care.
That's your time.
That's your time. But whatever you can, especially with families and children,
Yeah.
you must be so. I can't really relate because I don't have any family at this moment. But having that as a mom or somebody with a family, whatever situation you're in, having that non-negotiable time will just set you in the right direction. But I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. And if you have any comments about how do you guys manage your time, is there any tips that you want to add in the comment down below? Or if there's anything you like from our tips today,
Yes.
please feel free to comment. And again, thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching today.
Till we
Until
see
next
you
time.
again. Bye, guys.
Bye.